At my husband's funeral, I discovered his 40-year betrayal when our son publicly thanked his mistress as real family. But when the will left everything to her, I uncovered the fraud that funded their secret life, and orchestrated a courtroom revenge that reclaimed my legacy at the cost of my son. Stick around for a tale of hidden affairs, stolen fortunes, and a mother's unbreakable resolve. In the morning of the funeral, I buttoned Richard Carter's charcoal coat and stepped into the biting Omaha cold. The sky hung low like a sheet of tin, heavy and unyielding, while the wind clawed at the cathedral steps as if urging me to retreat. St. Cecilia's loomed ahead, its gray stone facade blending seamlessly with the overcast heavens. For 40 years, I had maintained order in Richard's life, managing his schedules, nursing him through illnesses, balancing the family's finances during lean times. Today, I vowed to do it one last time, keeping the service dignified amid the whispers and sidelong glances. The air inside the cathedral carried the faint scent of melted wax and polished wood, a comforting yet somber aroma that clung to the high ceilings. Ushers murmured softly, guiding mourners to their seats, while the pews creaked under the weight of bodies settling in. I moved through the nave like a shadow, placing boxes of tissues strategically where trembling hands might need them, directing elderly neighbors to seats closer to the aisle for easier access. My son, Matthew, stood near the pulpit in a dark suit that seemed ill-fitted, as if borrowed from a more authoritative figure. When our eyes met, he offered only the slightest nod, a gesture one might give to a half-forgotten acquaintance, not a mother. I selected a seat along the side aisle, not in the front row reserved for immediate family, but close enough to project modesty rather than alienation. Appearances had always been my armor, a shield against the judgments of Omaha's tight-knit society. I clutched my handbag, pressing my fingers into the supple leather until the texture grounded me. The choir began a soft hum, their voices quivering in the rafters like a collective breath held in anticipation. The eulogy commenced with polished, rehearsed truths. Richard had loved his city, led his firm with unwavering dedication, mentored the young associates who now filled the pews. Each sentence floated by like banners in a parade I had meticulously planned but was barred from joining. I waited for a mention of the intimate moments, the kitchen where soup simmered on cold evenings, the hospital vigils where machines beeped rhythmically through the night, the winters when I juggled accounts to keep the lights on. I waited for my name, Helen Carter, to weave into his narrative. Instead, Matthew stepped forward, clearing his throat with the poise honed in boardrooms. "There is someone I want to thank," he said, his voice steady and practiced. "Someone who stood by my father through the hardest years." The congregation leaned in, 100 heads tilting in curiosity. I braced for the word, "Mother." He paused, and the silence stretched. "Thank you, Claudia Evans," he continued. "You were there when he needed real family." The words shattered like glass on tile, echoing through the vaulted space. In the front row, a woman in an emerald coat rose gracefully, dabbing at her eyes with tears that seemed staged for sympathy. I knew her name, Claudia, once Richard's assistant, then a so-called consultant, always appearing at events with a swimmer's grace, surfacing where attention lingered. She nodded toward Matthew, then reseated herself as if the pew had been hers by divine right. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "So close, like family." Heads turned to gaze at her, half in awe, half in trepidation, like witnessing an eclipse. I kept my face impassive. Composure, after all, is what stillness becomes when practiced long enough. As the service concluded and the organ's notes faded, a new clarity crystallized. This funeral wasn't a farewell to Richard. It was an unveiling of a parallel life, conducted in rooms adjoining my own. I had set the table for decades, oblivious to the guests seated in the shadows. The December wind tugged at my coat as I exited, pulling at the remnants of the narrative I once believed. A page had turned without my knowledge, and I wondered how much of the story had already been rewritten. 2 days later, I ascended the marble steps of Harrison and Bellman, attorneys at law, a sleek glass building squeezed between historic brick facades on Farnham Street. My reflection in the door wavered, a woman arriving for an uninvited reckoning. The reception area smelled of ink and aged paper, with a crooked print of the Constitution on the wall, its frame ill-suited to the grandeur it enclosed. The secretary's gaze mixed pity with professionalism as she ushered me into the oak-paneled conference room. Sunlight sliced through the blinds in stark stripes across the carpet. Mr. Harrison, a man in his 50s with glasses that reflected the light like prison bars, sat at the head of the table. His voice was measured, each word released with precision. Beside him, Claudia Evans appeared in a tailored navy suit, her emerald coat discarded for the occasion. She tilted her chin confidently. Matthew sat next to her, his hands interlocked so tightly his knuckles blanched. He didn't acknowledge my entrance. I took a seat at the table's far end, my handbag a makeshift barrier. Harrison cleared his throat. Pursuant to the last will and testament signed by Mr. Richard Carter 3 years prior, the following dispositions shall be executed. He paused, the legal rhythm building like a drum roll. The residence on 38th Street in Dundee, the vacation property at Lake Okoboji, and the balance of his retirement and personal accounts are to be transferred to Ms. Claudia Evans. Additionally, any residual funds or securities not specifically enumerated are to be managed by Ms. Evans as primary beneficiary. The words tolled like misplaced bells. I leaned forward, my voice fracturing. "Excuse me." Harrison continued undeterred. I stared at the table's polished surface, my reflection distorting in the wood grain. 40 years, meals prepared, anniversaries celebrated, hospital nights endured, and I was omitted, not even a footnote. Turning to Matthew, I whispered, "You knew." His eyes remained forward, as if reviewing a familiar report. "Dad had his reasons," he replied calmly. "Reasons?" I echoed. What did 40 years mean to him? He shifted, his tone unflinching. Claudia understood him. She respected him. She didn't question him like you always did. The accusation struck like a gavel. It wasn't just Richard erasing me. My son was redrawing the family tree, excising my branch. As the reading ended, Claudia rose, clasping Matthew's hand without hesitation. Their silent alliance spoke volumes. I exited into the sharp Omaha cold, the air stinging my throat. Grief had morphed into a colder void. If I could be erased so effortlessly, how much of my life had been illusion? Returning to the house on 38th Street, the door resisted, swollen from winter moisture. I shoved it open, met by an unfamiliar silence. The rooms felt altered, though unchanged. Hanging Richard's coat in the closet, I inhaled the cedar and cologne scent from his wool vests. They hung perfectly, awaiting an owner who wouldn't return. I began searching drawers, receipts, ledgers, hidden photographs. A letter from a Lake Okoboji property management company, addressed to Claudia 7 years ago, detailed dock repairs and utilities. The lake house, site of countless family summers, had been shared. Placing the letter on the dining table under the chandelier's pale glow, my eyes burned with unshed tears. Descending to the basement, I found a sagging cardboard box. Inside, photos from galas and parties showed Richard beaming beside Claudia, his hand on her arm, hovering at her waist. One bore his handwriting, "Our little family will be complete one day." It wasn't mere infidelity, it was a deliberate replacement. Unsteady, I climbed the stairs, haunted by echoes of laughter from happier times. Late nights I attributed to work were rehearsals for this shadow life. The next afternoon, I visited neighbor Mrs. Grayson. Her withered roses framed a sharp memory. Stirring tea, she narrowed her eyes at Claudia's name. Oh yes, Richard brought her to symphonies. Once, she helped with Christmas lights here. I thought she was a cousin. When? I pressed. At least 10 years ago, maybe more, around when you were in Lincoln caring for your sister. 10 years. 15, perhaps. While I carried soup upstairs, balanced budgets, pawned my mother's necklace for tuition, He constructed a gilded existence for her. That night, by candlelight, I confronted the evidence. I was never central to his story, merely a shadow. But shadows can foster resolve. The following morning, the photo still under my hand, the hardened wax a testament to my vigil, determination pierced the ache. Money leaves trails. On my laptop, Douglas County property records revealed a villa purchased 5 years ago under Claudia's name, dated during Richard's client meetings, while I recovered from surgery alone. Her public Facebook page was a curated brochure, Richard in her living room wearing the wool jacket I'd gifted for our 25th anniversary. Caption, "His smile is my greatest reward." Another showed him planting flowers in her garden, tenderness foreign to me. A video, Claudia toasting him by a Christmas tree, arm around college-aged Matthew. "Your father should be proud." Slamming the laptop, my heart raced. This was initiation, not just betrayal. Claudia inducting my son into her fold. Emotions alone wouldn't suffice. I needed proof. Calling Janet Morales, a former colleague turned auditor, her brisk voice cut through, "Meet tomorrow. Bring everything." At her home, glasses perched, she scrolled archives. "See these? Evergreen Consulting LLC, $50, 000, $80,000, spread over 6 years, outside audit cycles. One transfer coincided with pawning my mother's sapphire necklace for Matthew's tuition. Fraud, Janet confirmed. Laundered through a shell. The word ignited something sharper than grief. Power. Driving home, documents heavy, the pale sky seemed less oppressive. Fraud elevated betrayal to crime. That night, I arrayed evidence on the table like a war map. Searching for attorneys, Monica Reed's profile stood out. Justice is not given. It is pursued. Her calm voice on the phone absorbed my torrent. Marriage, funeral, will, shell payments. "Send everything," she said. "We'll build the case." Delivering files downtown, her office overlooked the Missouri River. In the conference room, Monica flipped pages efficiently. Tapping Janet's records. Strong. If evergreen ties to Claudia, it's corporate misappropriation. Weeks blurred. Affidavits, copies, signatures. Claudia glittered in society pages. Matthew called once, cold. "Suing makes you vindictive." "Accept Dad's choice." "His choice was theft," I retorted. "You're destroying his memory," he snapped, hanging up. The cost, possibly losing my son. But truth demanded I stand alone. The courthouse steps bit with February wind. Inside, echoes amplified tension. The courtroom buzzed, reporters, firm associates. Claudia sat composed, navy suit impeccable. Matthew behind her, avoiding my gaze. The judge, a woman in her 60s with an unsparing gaze, called order. Claudia's lawyer presented binders, legitimate consulting invoices, will unambiguous. Monica countered, identical formatting, typos, shell company. Sole purpose, funneling $1.2 million. Gasps. On the stand, I swore oath, palms cold on wood. Monica gently, "Your marriage." Words flowed, sacrifices, quitting work, illnesses, tuition. Funeral humiliation. The judge's eyes held recognition, silenced women's solidarity. Monica presented Richard's draft will, residual heir clause in fraud cases. Claudia's composure fractured, objections overruled. Stepping down, Monica whispered, "You did well." Belief stirred. 3 weeks later, ruling day, packed courtroom, anticipation thick. Judge, invoices fraudulent, payments misappropriated. Will tainted, assets revert to Helen Carter. Evans repays with interest. Gavel struck. Claudia paled, whispering frantically. Victory, yet hollow. Matthew steadied her, exiting without glance. Outside, snow flurries dissolved on my coat. Whispers, she won. Monica, rest. Triumphs cost. Solitude. 2 years passed. Scandal faded. Assets restored. But Matthew's absence lingered. Silent holidays, empty chairs. Until my father's death in Lincoln. At the modest church, by the casket, a whisper, "Mom." Matthew, face aged, eyes meeting mine. Silence, then. I was wrong. Defended Dad's illusion. Claudia made him seem noble. But it was a lie. You carried us. Tears blurred. In the garden, lilac tree bloomed defiantly. What lives shouldn't be abandoned, I said. Like us, he replied. We talked hours, childhood memories, Asmonites, pancakes. How did you not break? Strength was all left. Protected myself, then truth. Evening brought peace. On the porch, wind chime tinkling, sunset gilding the sky, I felt visible. Not erased. Helen Carter, wife, mother, survivor. Truth had set me free.